Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. So we have been witnessing some pretty big moves happening around XRP lately. I understand that you guys are probably going to be immediately thinking price action and saying, well, Nick, the price action sucks. And trust me, I get that, right? We are still in the middle of a trade war. We are still hearing, talks about tariffs. So it's to be expected. I'm not actually looking bullish, on price action for a little bit of time here. I'm more so looking at what's happening behind the scenes that will lead to price action once we start to see the overall moves around these markets cooling off. Specifically, we look at TradFi as well. We look at stocks because the stock market is also tumbling. It has been for about 3 months now. So when we think about price action in the space, I'm just waiting for things to kind of cool off a little bit and stabilize. Until then, I don't really care too much about the price action, which is why I'm focused on what's happening behind the scenes for XRP that will lead to much larger price action. So let's actually start off with this post here. And this is actually from Tyler Winklevoss. And it's interesting because, the Winklevoss twins have been anti-XRP for a very long time. And now we see here calling on the Ripple army, earn XRP back with the Gemini credit card every time you swipe. This is very interesting, but again, we think about how anti-Ripple, anti-XRP the Winklevoss twins have been. It's almost as if everyone is starting to switch up. And why would that be? Well, it's because Ripple and XRP are becoming much larger names in the space. And with the much clearer view on regulations, I think that this is going to continue to happen. But let's actually talk about what's going on right now around crypto, specifically in the US. So we have over here from Walter Bloomberg, and we have more US states eyeing crypto as an investment. 17 states allow or propose crypto as a reserve asset, 16 moving towards pension fund inclusion, S&P 500. Crypto ETFs and regulations boost confidence in adoption. Current allocation remains small, but policy shifts are underway. President Trump plans to advance a US crypto strategy. Now, the big thing that I'm actually focused on here is crypto ETFs. Okay, I understand that we've been talking about ETFs for a very long time, but the main thing that I'm looking at is XRP ETFs. Over here, we got a big update from the Bitcoin.com news, which was according to Brown Brothers Harriman, crypto ETFs are winning over investors worldwide. 76% of US investors plan to boost crypto ETF allocations, trailing Asia with 80%, but outpacing Europe with 56%. BlackRock's IBIT leads the pack with 50 billion plus in assets and 113% return since launch. Spot Bitcoin ETFs approved in 2024 continue to drive mainstream crypto adoption. Is this the tipping point for institutional crypto? So again, we continue to see the ETFs being focused on in a big way, and they're still very bullish in terms of allocations, or at least proposed allocations. So when we think about this, we obviously have to think about XRP ETFs. And what's even crazier is that we saw a big post from Crypto.com recently this month, which was, we are excited to announce that Crypto.com will partner with Trump Media for ETFs, including a first-of-its-kind ETF basket of cryptocurrencies, including Crow and other crypto assets. Now, here we actually have the full-on announcement, which was Trump Media and Technology Group Corp., which is the operator of the social media platform Truth Social, the streaming platform Truth Plus, and the fintech brand Truth.fi, has signed a non-binding agreement to partner with Crypto.com, America's premier crypto trading platform, to launch a series of exchange-traded funds and exchange-traded products, collectively ETFs, through the Truth.fi brand. The ETFs made available through Crypto.com's broker-dealer Force Capital US LLC are expected to comprise digital assets as well as securities with a made-in-America focus spanning diverse industries such as energy. Crypto.com will support the back-end technology, provide custody, and supply the cryptocurrencies for the ETFs, which are anticipated to include a unique ETF basket of cryptocurrencies incorporating Bitcoin, Kronos, and other crypto assets. Now, can we just assume that XRP is going to be included in that? I think that we possibly can. And the reason why I say that is because of the talks and the ongoing discussions happening around the space. Now, first, let's start off with this, which was on the 26th, we got bullish Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse expects an XRP ETF launch in the second half of this year. So yeah, we're definitely focused on that. And I think that everyone should be focused on that, especially if you do hold XRP, because there is so many ETF filings for XRP at this point. I mean, it is insane when you look at this list. I also think that it's safe to assume that when all of these get the green light, it is going to change XRP in a huge way, because all of this will lead to volume, value, much more, value and volume than what most people are assuming. But also, you got to think about how many retail investors are going to tap into the ETFs. And how big are these ETFs going to really be? Well, let's actually think about that. So number one, we saw a big post from the Wolf of All Streets. Now, this is Crypto.com CEO discussing how XRP ETFs are going to attract $8 billion of inflows in 2026. But wait a second. We just saw a big update that Crypto.com was partnering with Trump. Now, obviously, it's Trump Media for ETFs. But this was a basket of cryptocurrencies. So wait, the CEO of Crypto.com is now talking about XRP ETFs and how it's going to attract $8 billion in inflows in 2026. And now they're launching ETFs with Trump Media that's incorporating Bitcoin, Kronos, and other cryptocurrencies. This is why I'm thinking, isn't it safe to assume that XRP would be included in this if the CEO of Crypto.com is this bullish on XRP ETFs? Check it out.
Next couple of years, I think altcoins that have strong flows will outperform. I don't know if you guys seen this, but there's a forecast saying that the ETF for XRP is going to attract 8 billion of inflows next year. So you can imagine what kind of impact that may have. And in terms of what we're doing, I think we have a very clear, differentiated, exciting strategy that nobody else is pursuing and nobody else can compete with us on. That's very unique. So we will build it, and I hope you guys join along for the ride next couple of years.
So again, we hear how bullish he is on XRP ETFs, especially going into 2026. I think that it hits $8 billion in inflows much faster than that. I think that this is a little bit more of a conservative view, but it's just interesting that we are now hearing XRP ETF talk from, Crypto.com CEO at the same exact time that they're now launching this partnership with Crypto.com. Now, on top of that, remember this post over here. Big shout to Good Morning Crypto. We have Ripple and BlackRock creating XRP ETF. CEO drops a bombshell on Bloomberg Crypto. He's hinting at a game-changing connection between BlackRock and Ripple launching an XRP ETF in the USA, stating, "We think it makes sense for the XRP community overall. Could BlackRock and Ripple be collaborating on an XRP ETF?" Check it out.
So you would welcome an XRP ETF then?
We would certainly welcome it, and I think it's inevitable that there'll be, multiple ETFs around different tokens. And I think you'll even see ETFs potentially around baskets that also, I think, further diversify that risk.
Are you in talks with the largest issuers, particularly BlackRock, to get this done?
Well, I'm not going to comment on that. I know BlackRock has said some things publicly. We think it makes sense for the XRP community overall. Ripple obviously is a very important stakeholder in the XRP ecosystem, but we're not the only player. And look, we've seen, before the SEC lawsuit, XRP was the second most valuable digital asset. I think because of the headwinds of that lawsuit, we've now seen that largely abate. But the long-term view on these things is about, how do you create utility and really solve real-world problems with these different digital assets?
So you would.
Now, of course, he can't comment on it because that's exactly what we've been hearing about for the last few years, actually, when BlackRock is supposed to be, launching an XRP ETF, right? Every single time that BlackRock is getting questioned about XRP ETFs, they can't talk about it at all. And now, of course, Brad Garlinghouse also can't talk about it at all, which I find very interesting. But of course, we got to think about the big picture here. If BlackRock does file for an XRP ETF, approval will happen very fast. We saw this happen with Bitcoin. We saw it happen with Ethereum. Why would XRP be any different? I don't think that it would be. But on top of this, we did see a post from Nate Geralsi, which is the president of ETF Store, the host of ETF Prime, and the co-founder of ETF Institute. We have the Ripple lawsuit coming to an end. Seems obvious spot XRP ETF approved, simply matter of time in my opinion. I completely agree, and I do think that this is going to be a massive game changer considering how many ETF filings there already are. But on top of that, we have, and yes, I expect BlackRock, Fidelity, etc. to all be involved. We know that Fidelity is unknown down here in terms of an XRP ETF. There's no official filing confirmed at all, but we could speculate that they would be filing for an XRP ETF. All right. But if we go back over here, we have XRP currently third largest non-stablecoin crypto asset by market cap. Largest ETF issuers aren't going to ignore this. And no, they're not. Listen, when they look at XRP, when they look at the inflows, when they look at the volume behind XRP, they know how big this could be. I've always said it. The institutions and the ETF issuers, they're greedy. They're greedy. They know that if they have an ETF for something like XRP, which is the third largest crypto asset, they look at the volume, they look at the value, they look at the hype around it. They know how much money they're going to make. They can calculate this. They have analysts that are calculating this. So why wouldn't BlackRock, file for an ETF? Why wouldn't Fidelity file for an ETF? They're not dumb. They know how much money they're making off of Bitcoin right now. So XRP would be in their best interest in terms of actually offering that ETF. And again, this is coming from somebody who's around the ETF space. They work in the ETF space. And they're saying that it's obvious for XRP to have their ETF approval very soon. It's only a matter of time. The clock is already ticking on this, and he is expecting BlackRock, Fidelity, and all of the big players to actually be involved. Now, on top of that, right, we look at how the Bitcoin ETF is stacking up. There was a post made from Cointelegraph which said bullish. Over half of U.S. states, 26 out of 50, have introduced Bitcoin reserve bills, many proposing to allocate up to 10% of state funds into crypto. Wisconsin led the way, becoming the first state to buy Bitcoin ETFs, holding $588 million as of Q4 of 2024. Now, the big question here is, if XRP gets an ETF, approval across the board, and we start to see massive amounts of inflows, and we actually see XRP ETFs, rivaling Bitcoin ETFs, wouldn't it be safe to assume that we're going to start to see, states also, buying XRP ETFs? I think that it would. But on top of this, right, we still are looking at BlackRock. Why are we looking at BlackRock? Well, because if we go back to the post over here, okay, we did see that BlackRock's IBIT has over $50+ billion in assets and 113% return since launch. Now, XRP has already outperformed Bitcoin. It's already outperformed Ethereum as well in the last year. I mean, technically speaking, this entire cycle for crypto going all the way back to the bear market lows, XRP has outperformed, majority of the top 100. And it's rivaled Bitcoin significantly. So if BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF is performing this well, just imagine how well the XRP ETF would be if investors were seeing significant returns much greater than the Bitcoin one, which I think it's safe to assume that it would, since, Bitcoin's upside potential is still limited because of the fact that when we look at the gains, diminished returns is a real thing. And it's facts. We know, Bitcoin has severely underperformed, previous cycles since, inception. And we look at altcoins that have outperformed Bitcoin cycle over cycle. XRP is a big one to really focus on, especially now that every single door is opening. All the obstacles are getting completely torn down. XRP is one I think everyone should be focused on right now, especially around ETF filings, because I think that once we have those ETF approvals, it is going to take this market and TradFi as well by storm once they see the inflows and how successful the XRP ETFs will be. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.